friends, welcome to this hip flow. I'm going to show you some of my favorite hip stretches. Feel free to pause the video at any point and stay in the stretch as long as you'd like. Blocks will always come in handy for some of the forward folds and lizards that we're going to be doing. So when you're ready, go ahead and come to a downward facing dog. If this is your first down dog of the day, go ahead and pedal out your feet. Make sure you're pushing through your hands, clawing your mat, engaging your core, and pushing that tailbone up to the sky, feeling the stretch through your hamstrings. Once you've pedaled out, go ahead and try and plant your heels. If you can't plant your heels, that's fine. Bend your knees, find your comfortable down dog, pushing the ground away from you. And when you're ready, we're going to root down through our left foot, lift our right foot into the air, bend our knee, and we're going to draw some hip circles. So I want you to pretend that you have a paintbrush on the end of your knee, and you are just painting a big circle. You can go as fast or as slow as you like. And then we're going to reverse the motion going the other way, opening up through our hips. Hold here, and we're going to come into a plank, drop our knee down, and then you're going to walk your knee, just kind of slide it off to the side. So we're going to go into kind of a half frog pose, getting straight into those hips today. If frog is in your practice, feel free to take full frog. In this pose, you want your knee coming straight out from your hip and your ankle straight down from your knee. So you want two 90-degree angles. And you can stay here, up on your elbows. You can lay yourself down, or if you want a little bit deeper of a stretch, you can come up a little bit higher, but that's a bit, make sure that you're not pushing into your low back, because that can be a lot of strain on your low back. So we're just gonna hang here for a moment. Feel free to massage those psoas, that hip joint there if you need to. And then we're going to plant our hands down, push back up into a down dog. Then we're going to bring our knee in again, drop our hips down, rolling over onto our side, root down through this, but we're going to go kind of into a side plank, but it's a wild thing. So pushing up, pushing your hips up to the sky, rooting down through that hand, feeling a deep stretch, not just in your hips, but also through your shoulders maybe. Okay, then spy the mat, plant your hand down, and bring your foot up to the top of your mat. It's a tricky transition. Take your time, sit down, and just come into lizard if that's what you need. In our lizard pose here, you can stay up on your fingertips, you can come down onto your palms, you can get your blocks and come up higher onto your blocks. But you want your knee pushing against your shoulder and your shoulder pushing against your knee. And you can even walk that back knee back a little bit more if you'd like. Again, if this is first thing in the morning, you might not be as flexible in your hips. You might not be able to come down as low as normal. Yep, it's a little too much for me today, so I'm just going to stay right here. And then when you're ready, we're going to open our hip up. So go ahead and let your foot open onto the blade side of your foot, letting your knee drop to the side. Maybe lifting that inner hand and using your hand to push your knee away a little bit, finding some movement. Maybe wiggle in it a little bit, find those sticky spots, find where it feels good. And you can stay right here, or you could stay back in that lizard pose. Or if you want a little bit more of a stretch, you're going to take your outside hand to the top corner of your mat, reach your other hand back so you're getting into a twist, bend that back knee and bring your foot into your hand and really push that foot into your hand, dropping your hips down. And if you want a little bit more, you can drop down to your elbow, maybe spinning your hand in a little bit more, really opening through that chest and that hip at the same time. This is called funky monkey. This is a very deep, intense stretch, so make sure you are breathing. You should feel this in that hip. When you're ready, gently release that foot. Come back up, and we're going to walk that front foot across to the other side of the mat, going into a pigeon pose. So a lot of teachers will tell you that your shin needs to be parallel to the front of your mat. Not everybody's body is built that way, so if that does not feel good for you, don't do that. Bring your heel closer to your groin, whatever is going to make you feel comfortable, but you want to make sure that you're not opening through that hip. You're trying to push that hip point down to the mat. Your hips are square to the front, and you're holding this pigeon pose, so you can hang out here. You can come down a little bit lower onto your elbows, or you could sleep your pigeon. So resting your head in your hands, or even coming to your cheek and draping your arms over. This is super deep, intense hip stretch. So take your time and work into it. Again, go ahead and feel free to pause this at any point if you want to just hang out here in these poses. Breathing. We're about to do another little tricky transition. So you're gonna root down through your hands. You're gonna untuck your back toes. You're gonna keep that front leg crossed over, and you're going to bring it to your knee, cross it back. So your ankle is over, it's not over your knee, it's above your knee going across your thigh. And then we're gonna walk our hands back into a kind of a forward fold. You can hang out here, or you can bend that knee and drop into a funky figure four chair pose. Making sure that you're breathing. You can bring your hands to rest on your shin and your knee and maybe push that knee away a little bit, really feeling it open through that hip. This is, again, an intense hip stretch, so that's what all these are gonna be. Okay, and then we're gonna fold forward, keep that knee bent, walk back into that plank and bring that foot forward back into another lizard pose. But instead of staying in lizard, we're gonna straighten that front foot. Spin that back heel to about 45-degree angle. You might want to kick it forward a bit more because we're going to go into a triangle pose. So inside hand to the inside of your foot, and then just open up through the front body, reaching up to the sky. This is a good place for a block if you need to come up a little bit higher. Stretching through that side, feeling that front hamstring and the back hip. That's where I'm feeling it today. Come back down, and then we're gonna come forward into a wide-legged forward fold. So again, blocks are a great place. Right here you can have your blocks, or come to a flat back, and then just gently fold to wherever you feel comfortable. So you wanna bring your chest to the ground. You don't wanna collapse, you still want your spine long. You can keep your hands resting on the ground. Bring your hands to the outside of your feet, to your ankles, big toe. You could even try and walk your hands back further, maybe pulling deeper into that stretch. Maybe walk your feet out wider if you want wider. Your head might come to the ground. Whatever feels good for you, and then come back up to that halfway lift. Now we're gonna bend our right knee and kind of come down. This is a flying monkey or a skandasana pose. This one, you might be up here on your toe. You might be here. You might be down here with me. Wherever you are today, honor that space. Make sure you're flexing through your quads so you're not hyperextending your knee. You can walk your hands forward. There's so many different variations that you can take, just trying to open through those hips. Good, then we're going to come forward again. So all toes are facing forward. Drop that back knee down. Front knee is at a 90-degree angle, and we're just gonna come and rest our hands on the top of our knee. Hips are pointed forward. Maybe come out of it a little bit and then drop back down into it. So we are in a low lunge, really feeling a stretch through that left hip point. And then from here, we're gonna straighten our front leg and fold over with a flat back into a half split. So you can actively try and pull your toes towards your face, or you can point your toes forward. If you are a runner, this is a great stretch for shin splints. Kind of just move back and forth through this, pointing and flexing your foot. That will stretch your hamstring, your shin. The shin's a tricky spot, kind of a difficult place to stretch, but this one is one of my favorites. Also, if it's summertime and you're wearing flip-flops, this is a great stretch for those shins, those flip-flop muscles. Ooh, feels tight. Good, okay, and then we are going to come back into that low lunge. Plant your hands down, come back into a plank. If you can, reach back through that down dog and plant your foot. Now we have to do the other side. So, settle your down dog for a moment. Take a few deep breaths. On an inhale, lift your left leg to the sky, bend your knee, and we're going to take those hip circles again. Remember, envisioning a paintbrush on the end of your knee. And whichever way you're going is totally fine. Just make sure that now we reverse it. So if you were going, painting your circles out, start painting them in. If you were painting them in, paint them out. Good. Now we're gonna keep our knee bent and we're gonna come into that plank, drop that knee down, back leg can drop down, and we're just gonna slide our leg out off the mat. So again, 90-90 into that frog pose. You can point your toe, flex your foot, mess around with that, see what feels good. But you should be feeling a stretch here in the hip and try and push that hip to the ground. You're trying to get your hip points to be touching the ground. Breathing. We're about to go back into that down dog and into the wild thing on that other side. So go ahead and plant your hands, untuck your back toes, lift up to that down dog, come back to that plank, kind of side plank, drop your butt down. So you're sitting on your side. You're going to have all the pressure in that bottom leg. So lifting up, pushing up through those hips. Maybe try lifting those bottom toes of that outside foot. Some people can even spin back into a wheel pose. If you're open and warm, feel free to try that. Spy your mat, plant your hand down, and then we're gonna go into that lizard pose. So drop your foot, left foot to the outside of the mat, left hand to the inside of your foot. Knee and shoulder are trying to connect. You can come up onto blocks, lower down to your forearms. Make sure that you are trying to point your hips forward. And continue to breathe. Keeping your core engaged. If you want to stay here, stay here. If you want to open your hip, feel free to open your hip so your foot is now on the blade side of your foot. Knee is open. Maybe give a little push. Very gentle, not on your knee, but on your thigh. And if you want even more of a deeper stretch, take that outside hand to the top of your mat, twist to the back. Might want to pad your knee here. Bend your knee, grab your foot, and you can hang here or really push into that foot or that foot into that hand, dropping your hips down to the ground and maybe dropping your elbow down too. Feeling that stretch through your front body and your hip. Breathing. You're doing great. Feeling all of the stretch. Wherever you're at, gently release. Come back to that lizard pose and then gently walk your foot over to the other side of the mat for that pigeon on the left side. Again, trying to keep your hips pointed forward. You might be up here. You might want to put a block under your seat to give you a little bit more support. Or you can sleep your pigeon. Mess around with the foot position. See if you can straighten, put your shin more parallel or bring your foot closer to your hip. Find what works for you and what feels comfortable for you. We're going to do that funky figure 4 again. So when you're ready, root down through your hands, untuck your back toes, keep that front knee bent and bring it up across your knee. So you're now in that downward dog with a crossed knee. And then if you can, walk your hands back. This takes a lot of strength, a lot of balance. Take your time. Forward fold, feeling through that hamstring and that opposite hip. And then just drop your butt down. You can hang here with your hands on the mat or on blocks, or you can come up, bring your hands to prayer. I like to use my elbow to kind of push my knee down a little bit, getting a deeper stretch through that outer hip. Breathing, flat back, core is engaged. Find a focal point so that you won't fall. Good. Fold forward, walk your hands back, and bring that foot back into that lizard pose. But we're gonna straighten that front leg, back foot goes to about a 45-degree angle. Might wanna spin it in a little bit more, going into that triangle pose. So if you wanna bring a block to the inside of your foot, bring a block here. Otherwise, open up through that front body, lifting up to the sky. Breathing. Good, we're gonna take that wide-legged forward fold again. I'm gonna face you instead. So we're in that wide-legged forward fold. Halfway lift, back is flat, core is engaged. And when you're ready, bring your chest to the floor. You can hang here. You can stay up in that halfway lift. Whatever feels good for you. Maybe using some of that bicep strength to pull yourself down a little bit closer to the ground today. Breathing. Come back up to that halfway lift, and now we're going to drop into our left leg into that Skandasana, flying monkey pose. So you are bent through your left leg. It's kind of a half squat with a straight leg. Flex or point your toes. Breathing. And then you're gonna spin. I'm gonna come back up to the other side into a low lunge. So point it forward again, drop that back knee. Untuck or tuck your toes, resting your hands on your knee, hip points forward. Maybe come up out of it a little bit and then drop down into it, really feeling that stretch to that front right hip. Breathing. And then we're going to straighten through that front leg. Flat back, folding over into a half split block. So again, a really good spot right here. And again, play around with it. Flex and point the foot. See where you need to stretch today. Maybe you have a tighter shin muscle than you do a calf muscle. So try and get your toes to touch your mat while keeping your legs straight. My daughter's a ballerina. This is super easy for her. She's got an incredible toe point. Good. And then from here, come back into that lunge. Plant your hands down, and we're going to come up into the Malasana or yogi squat. So feet are kind of pointed out a little bit, about a 45-degree angle. If you're here or up on your toes, it's fine. Try and drop your butt down to the mat. Use your elbows to push your knees away. And then maybe rock side to side, opening through those hips. We still have a nice long spine. Core is engaged. And then just gently drop down into a butterfly pose. I'm going to face you. So butterfly pose, your feet are together. You can have your feet further away or closer to you. And then you can wrap your hands around your feet or your ankles. And you just want to try to push your knees down to the ground, sitting up tall. Or you can fly your butterfly. Just another good hip stretch. Good. From here, we're going to go into double pigeon or fire log. So in double pigeon or fire log, you want your knee over ankle, ankle over knee. Now, my hips are quite tight. And as I work through this, they'll loosen up, so then my knee will go down lower. So my knee is not connecting with my ankle right now, which is totally fine. So I'm just gonna gently rest my hands. Make sure you're positioned on your sits bones. Move the fleshy part out of your way if you need to. And as you're sitting up tall, you can stay here, or if you want to, you can maybe hinge forward a little bit, just hinge at the hips. Back is still long to kind of help stretch through that hip a little more. See how my knee has now come down to my ankle? You can even just rest your elbows on your leg. Or you can take some other shoulder stretch here. This is a great place to take some eagle arms or some cow face arms. The cow face is where you reach over, or you can do eagle and stretch out your shoulders. And gently come up. And we're gonna switch. So if your left leg was on top, now your right leg is on top. Knee over ankle, ankle over knee. I'm a little bit more open on this side. My knee is down a little bit closer to my ankle. So on an inhale, exhale. Inhale, spine long. Exhale, hinge forward. Hanging out here. If double pigeon or fire log is too intense, I'm going to show you an alternate one next. It's called cow face. And so if you want, you can just completely take cow face, or you can just stay in fire log, whichever you prefer. I'll show you a fun little transition from cow face as well. So we're going to come back up. So since my right leg is on top, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just bring it over. I want my knees on top of each other, okay? So your foot position is completely up to you. Further away from you is a deeper hip stretch. Closer to you is a little less intense. So if you want a little bit less intensity, bring your heels closer to your body, okay? But the goal is to have your knee on top of knee. So you can hang here again, or you can fold forward on an exhale, really feeling that stretch. Sometimes this feels like a more intense hip stretch for me than double pigeon. And then when you're ready, I'm going to show you a fun transition. So you're going to come up onto the blade sides of your feet, lift up, spin around towards the back, come back around, and cow face on the other side. Okay, so again, knee over knee. So you might need to walk your feet out a little bit more. Feet closer to your body is less intense. Further away is more intense, at least for me. Maybe in your body it's not. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, fold. Feeling that one today. Cow face is a little bit more intense than fire log for me today. Sometimes it's not. You can even walk your hands out. Make sure you're breathing. And then come back up to sit. Go ahead and uncross. And we're going to do a straddle fold. So go ahead and come into a wide, it's like the wide-legged fold when we were standing, but now we're sitting. So go as wide as you are comfortable. Flexing your feet, bringing your toes towards you, engaging your quads, and trying to spin your knees, trying to spin your inner thighs out. That's going to engage those hip flexors and really stretch for you. So you can stay here. You can get blocks again or whatever you want to do. Inhale, spine long, and then we can fold forward. Again, do what feels good for you. So either stay here or you can fold forward, keeping those legs engaged. Some of you can probably just like lay it out flat or like reach to your hands, and this is called a pancake. I think it's because you're flat. I'm not exactly sure why it's called a pancake. Pancakes sound good right now. Maybe I'll go make some after this. Just hang out here for a moment, breathing. Keeping those legs engaged. Sit up nice and tall. Bend your feet back in again, and we're gonna do cobbler's pose. So with cobbler's pose, it's like butterfly, but instead you're trying to like peel your feet open so that the bottoms of your feet are now facing towards you, kind of opening like a book, okay? Pushing your knees down and then folding over, or you can round your back and roll down and try and bring your head to your feet. I am not there yet. Maybe one day. Breathing. And gently come back out of it. Go ahead and maybe slap your legs out a little bit. Come to an easy seat. I hope you feel a little bit more open, your hips feel good. Again, feel free to pause it and hang out in any of these poses as much as you want. If you want to take those frog poses again, maybe try a full frog. That one is super intense. Actually going to show it to you real quick. So when you come into a frog, you have your knees behind you, or your knees behind you. So again, it's a 90-90. This is my frog here. I can come down a little bit lower, but not too much. The way to come out of frog safely, so you're pushing your bum back a bit in frog. To come out of it without injuring yourself, just kind of pitch yourself forward and then maybe windshield wiper your legs a little bit, okay? So that is another stretch that you can take. Hang out in these as long as you would like. Sometimes I like to put a show on or a movie, play games with my kids, and sit in cow face or fire log, and it's a great way to get some hip openers. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you for joining me again.